Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Robert Adams, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Zachary Berra. Today marks the 110th anniversary of the capture of the village of Pozieres. In the early hours of the 23rd of July 1916, under the cover of a carefully fired artillery barrage, troops of the Australian 1st Division launched an attack on the fortified French village of Pozieres. Australian troops entered the village and after hours of bitter fighting were able to eject the Germans who had held the village since the earliest months of the war. One man described how, the instant that our guns lifted, the German batteries and machine guns, which had been waiting, opened fire on us, and a torrent of high explosive shrapnel and bullets were let loose. Men fell in all directions, but nothing could stop the boys now their blood was up. Into the trench they dashed and bayoneted and shot like fury. The capture of Pozieres was the beginning of a 6-week campaign that saw 3 Australian divisions rotate in and out of the line, conducting attack after attack along Pozieres Ridge. They slowly advanced towards the fortified stronghold of Mouquet Farm under some of the heaviest artillery fire of the war. By the time the Australians were relieved from the battlefield on the 3rd of September 1916, they had advanced a little over a mile from Pozieres at a cost of 24,000 casualties, 6,731 of which were dead. Australian troops fell more thickly on this ridge than on any other battlefield of the First World War. Today, we pay our respects to those commemorated here on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who returned home. 2026 also marks 125 years of dedicated service by the Australian Army and its predecessors. Today, we remember and pay tribute to Captain Malcolm John Bernard Cotton. This evening, we warmly welcome, representing the Returned and Services League of Australia, ACT branch, Mr. Patrick Delgaitis, and the Special Advisor to the Department of Veterans Affairs, Mr. Nick Booth. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Newington College visiting from Stanmore in New South Wales. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catafalque party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. If you're able, I now invite you to please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Students and visitors who are able, you may now be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozieres, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Captain Malcolm John Bernard Cotton. Malcolm Cotton was born on the 10th of November 1894 in Wilcannia, New South Wales, one of 6 children born to Stock Inspector James Cotton and his wife, Ada. Malcolm received his education at East Maitland Boys High School, where he was an active member of the cadets. On completion, Malcolm joined the local militia and rose quickly to the rank of lieutenant. He was working as a junior clerk for the Department of Labour and Industry when the First World War broke out in 1914. Malcolm Cotton soon volunteered for active service and was assigned to A Company of the 2nd Infantry Battalion with the rank of private. During a short period of training, he was promoted to the rank of colour sergeant. He embarked for service on the 18th of October 1914, sailing from Sydney on the troop ship Suffolk. Reaching Egypt in December, Cotton spent the rest of the year training in preparation for an attack on the Dardanelles. Cotton embarked in early April, but began suffering from tonsillitis. He was returned to Cairo for treatment, missing the Allied landings on Gallipoli, but rejoined his unit in June. As the initial landing had been a disaster, Cotton and his comrades were engaged in routine trench duty as they tried to defend their position. In July, Cotton became ill and was evacuated to the island of Mudros. He rejoined his unit in August and was commissioned 2nd Lieutenant. Just 2 days later, Cotton and his men went into action at Lone Pine. Rushing towards the enemy's front line under intense fire, the men were confronted by pine logs covering the Turkish trenches. Casualties from enemy artillery and machine gun fire quickly rose. Cotton was among those hit during the attack, suffering wounds to his head and legs. He was evacuated to Egypt a few days later for treatment in hospital. By the time Cotton returned to his unit in October, the situation on Gallipoli had only continued to deteriorate. By December 1915, the process of evacuating troops began. Cotton wrote in a letter home, "Half the force left the first night, and at 10:30 p.m. I was left with 11 men. Then at 2:30 p.m. I was left with 2 men. It was a very exciting time holding the company's line with only 2 men. Then at 20 minutes to 3, we left, and the Turks were still plugging away at our sandbags. I was the last man out of the company's trenches and have kept the cartridge case of the last shot I fired that night." Following the evacuation, Cotton returned to Egypt, where the AIF was training and expanding during a period of reorganisation. Cotton was promoted to lieutenant before they embarked for the Western Front. His unit sailed to Marseille and then north towards the border of France and Belgium. In April, Cotton was promoted to captain. After a short period of leave, he rejoined his unit in the trenches in early June. Within weeks, they were drawn into the fighting around the village of Pozieres. They entered the trenches there for the first time on the 20th of July, coming under some of the heaviest machine gun and artillery fire they had ever experienced. On the 23rd of July, Cotton and his men moved out from the trenches to launch an attack on enemy lines. Following their bombardment, they quickly took 2 lines of trenches before being forced to dig in overnight. Throughout the evening, the enemy heavily shelled their positions, causing many casualties. During this bombardment, Captain Cotton was killed. One of his comrades wrote to Cotton's family, "A piece of shell struck him, killing him instantly, and I am quite convinced he never knew what hit him. So you see his end was merciful, and it will be a comfort to you all to know that he did not suffer. I know that Malcolm was to you and how you all loved him. Do not worry too much over his death. as he would not like to think you were all unhappy. Just go on loving him as he richly deserves, and picture him the hero he really was. He had no fear of death, and after all, what more glorious end could one have? Members of Cotton's battalion attempted to bring in his remains, but they could not be found. Today, he is commemorated on the Australian Memorial at Villers-Bretonneux, among those who have no known grave. Captain Malcolm Cotton was 21 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Captain Malcolm John Bernard Cotton, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If you're able, I now invite you to please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Catapult Party, present up! Catapult Party, shoulder up!
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. The reader, piper, and bugler will now retire into the Hall of Memory. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today. We wish you all a very pleasant